DRock pulled that off just 4 months ago. Looks like we were off. Just a little bit more about DRock. He's been speedrunning in general for about 2.5 years, and he's been running this category for about 7 months. So if you're new to this category, don't be surprised if you can catch up pretty quickly to some of these faster times. With enough work and effort, you can get there pretty quickly. You also may know him from his Earthbound run. So early on here in the escape sequence, Jetta and DRock are going to be mostly just focusing on optimizing every little bit of movement they can. We don't have the Pegasus boots yet, and so all of the fastest things that we can do in this run aren't really available to us until a little bit later on. One thing you'll see that separates our runners early on is just simply nudging into objects. You'll see that Jetta here has a little bit longer of an animation walk around because he wasn't perfectly aligned with the path he was traveling with. Over the course of the run, this can add up to several minutes of time. Next, we get to say hi to our favorite uncle who left us a parting gift. I like to call it a dub parting gift. Which is our fighter sword. We're going to need this for our escape sequence. If our runners do a really good job here, we're going to see them get out of the Hyrule Castle with Zelda in less than 6 minutes. That being said, there's only a few instances of RNG they're going to have to encounter. If you're not familiar with this run, the enemies for almost every room of the game are going to spawn in the exact same location, but how they move is random. So these green guards in this hallway, for example, are the first instance of that RNG. We're going to see our runners deal with the blue guard here in the basement. The best strategy to kill this blue guard is to simply find a way to kill him close to the door. Whether that's a spin slash or 3 slashes, you just don't want to spend a lot of time chasing after that key. As we progress further into the escape, you may also see our runners take advantage of a common movement tech used in this game called pumping. How it works is Link's animation, based on his sprite, is based on a certain number of pixels per frame moving depending on the direction you're going. So if you're moving in the cardinal directions left or west or north or up, Link will actually start his walking animation 2 pixels per frame and alternate between that and 1 pixel. So on average about 1.5 pixels. If you were to mash up and down when you're moving left or left and right when you're moving up, you can reset this animation, and this will actually move Link closer to 2 pixels per frame. There's really no ceiling on how fast you can do that. Nobody in the world can really mash 30 times a second. So our runners will take advantage of this as much as possible, particularly before we get the Pegasus boots. Moving on further into the basement, DRock showing us the 8 slash technique for the ball and chain guard. Our runners have a couple of different ways to deal with this guard. For the most part, though, killing it as close as possible to the door, allowing for a fast boomerang, is the most reliable way to get through this quickly. Jetta getting pretty close there with the guard. Managed to squeeze through no problem, though. We'll also get an example of stair lag canceling. DRock just showed it to us here, and it looks like Jetta's going to pick up some extra safety hearts. Definitely worthwhile. You don't want to die in escape. But as you see him exit these automatic staircases, you'll see he faces either left or right immediately after exiting them. This cancels about 22 frames of stair lag that you would have. The best explanation I've seen for it is that if you are continuously moving in a direction, the game has to reset your walking animation. And if you face left or right, you don't have that stutter step as you leave the stairs. On our way back out towards the shelf at the back of Hyrule Castle, we have pretty much the exact same RNG to deal with. You'll see DRock making his way very quickly to the center room. Looks like Jetta managed to take a poke from the blue guard. However, that does give him a damage boost, which is, fortunate. Save a couple frames there. Fun fact about this shelf that DRock is about to show us pushing with Zelda, you actually can't even move the shelf at all unless you have the lamp. The game really wants you to find that lamp. So typically you would get it in Link's house in a casual playthrough. In this example, you could also get it from another chest before you even get to the basement, but that last chest where Zelda is a guaranteed lamp drop. So we pick it up then because it's just a little bit faster to get it then. Moving forward further into the basement, we have a couple more instances of RNG coming up here. It looks like Jetta picked up the heart safety that's under that pod. That's a great one to get. If you're missing any health going into the snake room, it doesn't really take much time to lose, and he gets very friendly snake RNG as well. You'll see on DRock's screen, he is pumping through that water. Water slows you down even more than your regular down and right animation cycles do. It's very important to pump through water because you save a ton of time doing it. We'll see if, yeah, it looks like Jetta's doing it as well. In terms of that movement tech, doing some pumping is better than doing no pumping, so even if it's just a little bit, I mean, you are saving time. Looks like both of our runners managed to handle the key rat all right. DRock getting right around a 6-minute escape, which is very good. You also get an opportunity here on Jetta's screen in a moment to see the text skip that we can do in this next room, assuming that these rats get out of his way. If you hold right immediately after leaving that door, there's a text box that Zelda would normally tell you to go check out the switch on the side. We get to skip that. Looks like DRock did actually have only one heart container going into the cutscene. This actually does skip a little bit of time. The best explanation I've heard is that the heartbeat sound clip overrides something else that plays, presumably the end of the text that you just heard from Jetta there. Being that this is a race, both of our runners will be picking up the Sanctuary Heart. I've only seen actually one racer do it without the Sanctuary Heart so far this tournament. I think there may have been others. It's an aggressive thing to avoid, being that it only saves you about 3 seconds. Moving further, we are heading now to Eastern Palace. Both of our runners are going to make excellent use of pumping throughout this section. Staircases have walls on both sides, so you can actually mash left and right on both directions, and you can get about twice as effective, compared to just air pumping, for example. Doing this correctly allows you to skip a couple of enemies, particularly this blue guard if you get it perfectly, but sometimes you just have to boomerang him anyway if you're not optimal everywhere else. There's also an Armos Knight that DRock passed that we'll see Jetta in a moment pass. If you boomerang him, you actually prevent the lag of him moving on screen, so that's actually the best way to deal with this guard. Moving on a little bit further into Eastern Palace, DRock is about to show us the first of the exploits that we can use in this dungeon. We have a Stalfos room, where normally all 4 of them would spawn if you were to walk towards that center pod in the room. Knowing exactly where those spawn points are, though, we can actually manipulate the game into spawning one of those Stalfos outside of the room, so it just doesn't spawn, and we can kill 2 of the other ones just by throwing pots in good place. DRock pulled it off perfectly. Looks like DRock is going to opt for the safety arrows. Definitely a strong strategy in the race. And it looks like both of our runners know how to deal with these Stalfos. In just a short moment, we'll also have DRock showing us the first damage boost of the game, well, the first scripted damage boost of the game. DRock will be walking right into a Popo, which will knock him with invincibility frames over to some anti-fairies. These anti-fairies have a pot underneath them. If you pick it up and stand on the switch when your iframes expire, you'll activate the big key switch without having to kill all the enemies in the room. Having a little bit of trouble there as those anti-fairies do 1 heart of damage, however, he did manage to get out of that alive. Definitely would have been a bad thing to skip that Sanctuary Heart. Moving forward, DRock will be picking up his bow as we have Jetta on the left, shortly doing the Popo damage skip. seems to have had the same kind of problem that DRock had, although both of them did manage to get out of it unscathed. DRock having a little bit of a Igor party in the first dark room of the second half of the dungeon. On DRock's side, we're going to see the first instance of Cannonball RNG. He was actually given some pretty fortunate RNG there. He didn't have to dodge too much. The Cannonball spawns are completely random, so you never really know what pattern you're going to get. You just have to dodge them. Oh no, Jetta accidentally hitting the Popo with the arrow instead of the green Igor. We're going to have DRock here on the right fighting Armos. Looks like he's going to use the kind of standard, I suppose, setup for the fast kill. Looks like he pulled it off without a hitch. Jetta will be shortly behind him. Looks like DRock's finishing Eastern Palace right around 11-11. That's a pretty good split overall. Definitely good for a race. As Jetta heads into Armos, we'll have DRock heading to go pick up his Pegasus boots. We're going to see our first example of spin speed in a moment. I'll explain that as soon as we see Jetta's fight. Oh no, Jetta actually shot that arrow a little bit early. Recovers pretty well though, manages to get back into the cycle. Let's see if we can wrap this up without running out of arrows. Looking good, and manages to get him in front of him. Perfect. Alright, so on the right we see DRock trying to do spin speed. How this works is you need to charge up a sword spin and release it and press A the frame after you release that. If you do so, you cancel the dash animation with the spin, and the game gets kind of confused. Besides, well, I guess you're dashing constantly now. It keeps you at walks using the walk animation, but you dash at full speed. This prevents us from having to charge up a bunch of dashes, so this is a really useful movement tech. We're going to see this all throughout the run. Some places more than others, particularly when we get across these long distances. The way it works, though, is you have to actually touch a manual staircase after you've activated the glitch before you get the super speed. We're going to see it again on DRock's screen. Hopefully he pulls it off. As for total time save goes, it's a little bit minimal, so you see DRock on his second attempt didn't get it. He decided to just simply dash instead. That's the wise choice. If you don't get it the first or second try, it's not really something you want to try 3 or 4 times. We do get to see the back of Sahaswala's hut here with Jetta, though. Jet is going for these rupees instead of doing the tree rupee route. DRock looks like he's going to be picking up tree rupees later on in the run. How this works is we're going to be manipulating some prize packs, and we're also going to be manipulating some tree pulls on his side. The tree pulls themselves, if you were to kill 4 enemies without taking any damage, he's going to actually get in his second tree pull red rupees instead of blue rupees so he gets the first time. If we do this correctly, we're going to have more than 110 rupees when we get to Palace of Darkness, and our extortionist friend, Kiki, will be satisfied, and I guess he'll feed his family or something. Next up on the dungeon ledger for DRock is Desert Palace. We have Jetta going to pick up his book right now, or his literacy, as we like to say. We do get an opportunity to see if Jetta, he does actually get the spin speed. That's a difficult spin speed to get because you have a pretty small window to get it. Same thing for going back. You can actually do it on your way back through that screen. And DRock is entering Desert Palace. Desert Palace is another collectathon. We run into a lot of the exact same stuff. You're just going to be dashing left, right, back, forth. If only we had the mirror, this would be my second favorite place to have it. We get to see DRock do an unusual exploit of this game. Normally you have to dash into objects to knock the bonkable items off of them. However, if you slide or nudge past the object as you're dashing, you can actually collide with the wall behind it instead. In some instances, this puts you closer to the key when it lands. So this is useful in a couple different places. That was one good example. DRock unfortunately got some bad cannonball RNG. This is the second instance in the run. So I guess he's paying for the, the good RNG he had earlier. DRock progresses on to the earliest version of the Circle of Pots room, the Desert Circle of Pots. He's going to pick up his extra arrows there as well. So he's going to be walking into Lamola's fight with at least 20 arrows, probably closer to 30. He might even pick up the full arrow count there. It's a safe decision to make. You definitely don't want to be going through most of the rest of the next few dungeons without arrows. You definitely want to have a high count throughout the rest of this run. Now, bombs, on the other hand, it's a little bit easier to not worry about. There are a lot of places where you can pick up bombs, and if you're smart about that, you can, also save yourself a menu by having the game automatically switch to the next item that would be a bomb. Silly Willy Wood and Chad asking about waggling left and right. We call it pumping. So we talked a little bit before about how movement animation is sped up when you're moving north or west. Resetting that animation puts you at 2 pixels per frame. Doing it on stairs, stairs are actually even slower than normal movement speed, so you get more benefit out of it on staircases. Same deal with water. Anything that's going to slow your movement speed down a lot will be enhanced significantly by pumping. If you do it optimally, though, you could save as much as 10 seconds in a run. The key difference, though, is that being ahead by that amount does prevent other potential time losses. So being consistent in that regard is very handy. Here we have DRock walking into our favorite random fight in the entire game, Landmolus. I don't know if you're fans of Beetlejuice out there or Dune, some flashbacks to that. Here in the first phase of the fight, all 3 of these Landmolus worms are going to spawn in the exact predetermined point, but the flight path they take is random, including how long they actually stay in the air. From then on, all of the locations are different. It takes 4 arrows to take one of these down. You can also do a spin slash to replace one of those arrows. They shoot boulders out in every direction, but getting 2 or 3 cycles is very fast. Even 4 or 5 is pretty good. DRock had a pretty good fight there. He handled that very well. We're going to have Jet shortly joining him in that fight in about the next minute or so. Miramong and Chad making a very good point about pumping on wider stairs as well, for example, like the pyramid. As long as it's a manual staircase, you can do it. It's a good place to activate spin speed, too, because it's automatically set once you've done that. If you want a good example of how that works, just simply hold diagonals on staircases and you'll see how faster you ascend and descend them compared to just vertical. On our right-hand side, we have DRock attempting to do the fake flippers glitch. We have this bush that we line up here with, we do a diagonal walk to the corner of the screen. Now, we don't have the flippers yet. We're not supposed to be able to swim. The way this works is if you transition the screen on the next frame after you jump in, because you have a short amount of time, you can change your direction. The game doesn't really know what to do with you. They're like, well, you don't have flippers, but you are swimming, so I guess you do. So it just believes you. And as long as you don't get hit, you don't soft lock. We can potentially soft lock there, though. Looks like Jet is in his Landmolus fight. Let's see how he handles it. He's getting a lot of arrows in the first couple of rounds. He got some unfortunate flight patterns in Cycle 2, though. There are a lot of different ways to handle these Landmolus to try to get as many arrows in as possible. A lot of people prefer to go from the left to the right. Doing above or below works just as well. You kind of want to think about where they are in the room because they generally will fly mostly towards the center. Not universally, Landmolus doesn't like to work with you, ever. But with the last one left, we're going to have, instead of just those 4 diagonal rocks, we're going to have 8 different directions that they shoot out. Jet has plenty of health, he should be fine. And with that, Jet manages to clear up Glamolus and will be on his way to the Tower of Hera, where DRock is currently about to head. We also get to see a good use of a pause buffer. If you're going to be pausing to change items anyway, you might as well use it in a position where you can help your movement. By doing so, DRock was able to enter the portal from the right side, which on this ascent of Death Mountain actually results in a quick warp. Quick warp, just to kind of briefly explain it, the game takes a certain amount of frames to complete the warp animation, and if the camera is positioned correctly, the game actually does so with less lag, basically. And with less lag, you'll finish the warp about 20 or 30, I think it's 34 frames. If anybody knows that in chat, please correct me, but it saves you about half a second in most situations. They're free as long as you know where you need to be. You just got to find a way to pan the camera correctly. Entering that portal from the right side on that ascent will do so. We'll get to see Jet here attempting his fake flippers. If you mess up the setup for that, it's kind of hard to adjust. The key thing, though, is that bush does also align with the wall to the left of it, so you can get through that pretty well. It's good that neither of our runners soft-locked, though. That's a legitimate fear we've had in this tournament. We have some provisions here in the group stages where you can basically just save and quit to, restore your file, but typically that's not permitted. We also have DRock doing the tile room. He's opting to simply use his boomerang to get through. This prevents him from having to do a switch of his items. We may see Jet use a bomb to activate the pegs so that he can stand on them. He has the bombs to do it. I do it myself. But hard to say which way he's going to go with it. Unrelated in the chat, mentioning another alternate strategy to set up fake flippers, and I like this. If you were to bomb yourself into the furthest pixel on the screen, you could walk straight upwards and then screen transition while in the water, because the bomb explosion doesn't knock you back through the transition. Thanks for the tip. That's actually really good. DRock is flying through Hera, though. He's moving on to a room we like to call the petting zoo. I am sure you can guess why. Mini Moldorms here are everyone's favorite mascot. He's going to set up for a bomb jump here. So bomb jumps are an intended, well, I guess not an intended mechanic of Zelda, but it's definitely not something that was changed in different versions. All you have to do is line up a bomb and Link close enough to the edge of a gap. It's within a certain window of pixels. If you're lined up really close with the bomb, it's a 2-pixel window. If it's far away and you're dashing into the wall, you get a little bit more leniency, about 6 pixels. If you do so, you can jump across and you get to save having to go upstairs and then falling through the hole in the floor to get the Moon Pearl. All in all, saves a good 20-30 seconds, depending on how good you are moving through those rooms. He's going to move on to the Moldorm fight, though. We need 6 slashes on Moldorm to finish him off. This is a very precarious fight if things get off the rails, because he can knock you off and you have to start it all over again. And his 6th attack, he doubles his speed, so you got to watch out for him there. DRock did a really good job of fighting him here. Jet appears to have died in the key room, the first basement room. He may have been doing that intentionally to get a health refill, though. I guessed right. So Jet's going to place a bomb on this switch here, and as long as he doesn't get hit by one of these tiles, yep, he can stand on that peg, and it does absolutely no damage to him. The game doesn't like it when Link stands on a peg switch that's pressed upwards. Thinks basically that he's clipped out of bounds or something. It gives him invincibility frames because it doesn't know where to place him. So we can just basically use this as a coffee break or a tea break. I guess it depends on where in the world you're from. With that, though, here on DRock's screen, we're going to get an opportunity to see the first tree pull. Now that we've killed some enemies, we have some blue rupees to collect from this. He doesn't need to collect all of these. The red rupees are the ones that he cares about. And he's going to have to kill 4 enemies without taking any damage in order to collect those red rupees from that tree. Jet has his big key heading up to the top of Hera. He should be joining us towards the Master Sword shortly. In response to the saving in chat, we have not had any map checks, but I have unfortunately done that in a couple of my runs, so I wouldn't be surprised if we accidentally see it. I believe I know that Jet does run randomizer, so I'm not sure if he has any muscle memory to look out for here. DRock has picked up his Pew Pew laser sword. He is now ready to go make his second tree pull. In the meantime, Jet taking some relatively safer strategies through the petting zoo. Being that he only has 3 hearts, this makes a lot of sense. He's using a simple dash cancel setup to line up his bomb placement. He doesn't do the dash strategy at all. He just simply bombs across by putting himself within 2 pixels of the edge of the gap. Looks like DRock did manage to get all 4 of those enemies for the tree pull. He is now set to pay off our extortionist friend, the Monkey Kiki. But first, we need to go say hi to our friend Zelda, who is currently, well, is soon to be encapsulated in a crystal. Jet utilizing the very large and strange hitbox from Moldorm's tail with some sword spins. This is a really good strategy. You just want to make sure you're facing Moldorm with that sword. As long as you are facing away from the gap with your sword charged, you actually can't fall. You just got to keep pressing opposite of the direction you would fall. This is a really good last resort technique for the last hit. We'll see this a lot. On the right-hand side, though, we do see DRock doing the gold Night Room. He opted to use bow strats, and he's going to dash through these enemies because he's trying to preserve a fairy drop that he might be able to get in Turtle Rock a good 40 minutes later. Jet does manage to clean up Moldorm, so we are both with 0 falls. Thank goodness. I wanted to say that afterwards so I wouldn't curse him. Overall, pretty good light world from both of our runners. Jet did manage to get the spin speed leaving Harrow, which I never managed to get, but he ended up getting hit by a Dead Rock. Dead Rocks are not our favorite friends. In the meantime, though, DRock, conveniently named for that phrasing, is making the way to Aghanim now. He's got a few blue guards in his way. He's going to try to dash through so that he doesn't increment that prize counter. So to explain a little bit about that, there's a certain way that prize packs, when you kill an enemy, sometimes they drop something for you, depending on where you are in this increment, in this prize pack increment. It determines what you get. Now, these enemies are not just grouped together in ways that you think would make sense. The Pokies, the enemies that basically look like cacti in Turtle Rock, for example, are in the same group as the guards, which is kind of disorienting for newer runners. But if we don't kill any other guards of that class from here until Turtle Rock, we have a 50-50 chance of getting a fairy drop right before the Chomp Room, which is a very dangerous place to be. If you're not picking up certain safeties, like, for example, the Mushroom, which I don't think DRock did, then that's a very important place to get it. On the left, the Sword of Evil's Bane. On the right, the Evil of Swords Bane, of Zelda's Bane. I'll think of a better joke, but we're about to have our Aghanim fight, which is the single largest determining time loss when it comes to RNG here in this run. I would say it's even worse than Lamolus if you have really bad RNG. So Aghanim here on the right, he has a 5-attack cycle. The first attack is a guaranteed reflective shot that you can always hit him with. The second, third, and fourth alternate basically at a coin flip's chance, 50-50 chance of having a regular attack or that, a blue ball. The blue balls are what we don't want. It wastes time, you can't hit him with it. We need 6 hits total to knock him out. And every 5th shot is a lightning attack that you cannot reflect. So if we do the math, if the first one's a guaranteed, reflective shot, or a yellow ball as we like to say, then by that logic, the worst that we can do if we hit every shot we can get is 15 blue balls. I'm not going to say who exactly got 15 blue balls in this tournament, potentially twice, but it's not what you want to see. It's a large time loss. You lose about 7 or 8 seconds for each one. So far, I've seen 3 blue balls. DRock's doing a pretty average RNG so far. We'll see if he manages to escape without too much worse luck. Looks like he put the final touches on Aghanim right at the 30-minute mark. 30 minutes in the light world is pretty good in my opinion. Definitely not, going to be world record pace or anything, but DRock is doing a really great job so far in this run, executing cleanly through what he can control. We'll have Jet entering Aghanim's tower shortly behind. Yeah, to answer in chat asking about Jet, his Lamel cycles were, I think he had about 3 or 4 extra cycles, and it was pretty rough. I mean, he missed a couple of arrow opportunities. Sometimes with those Lamolus fights, you just can't change the flight path. You just gotta kind of react to it. It's definitely a difficult fight to get good at. I mean, even if you're good, it's bad. Now that DRock has made it through Aghanim, though, we are in the Dark World. Just half an hour into the run, we're heading to Palace of Darkness, where we have a couple of exciting opportunities to see if our racers can pull off some difficult execution maneuvers. One thing you'll notice with Jet's screen, he's going through this dark maze. There's one thing that our runners want to avoid while doing this, is they don't want to alert the guards. This changes the path that they follow. It's very difficult to avoid them after that, so you managed to get through that really nicely before alerting that last guard. We have Kiki, the extortionist monkey on DRock's side. You have to pay him 10 rupees to get him to follow you. I don't know what that's all about. If I had to pay 10 rupees to get someone to follow me on Instagram, I'd have like 0 followers. But you have to pay him another 100 to open the door for you. Now, the risky thing about Kiki is if you do get hit while he's following you, he runs away. He's not all about that. He'll take your 10 rupees, but he's not going to chase you into like a battle or anything. So if you lost that, if DRock, for example, got hit, you would have to scrounge around for 2 more rupees, which isn't that hard to do. You could use Boomerang and kill enemies to get 1 rupee each, although Popos usually drop a little bit more than that. Or I suppose it was the jelly enemies, not Popos. Looks like Jet is working through the red guard rooms as DRock enters Palace of Darkness. Here in Palace of Darkness, this is just a very fast collectathon, very similar to Desert. We're going to look for a whole bunch of keys. We're going to grab that big key. We'll have a very fun skip called the Hammer Yump. And then not too long after that, we'll get to say hi to some friendly turtles and their Turtle King. Now that we have the mirror, dungeons are made a lot easier, particularly when they're collectathons. DRock here making great use of it. I like to call it the Palace of Mirrors myself. Some pretty fantastic timing. We're going to have an Aghanim fight at the same time as a Hammer Yump. I should probably explain the Hammer Yump first. So, DRock is going to be moving towards a room that has a collapsible bridge. We need to get through another room, and a dark room, a maze, in order to get to the hammer. However, if we place a bomb in the exact right position, and Link, basically 2 pixel-perfect placements, then we can actually bomb through the gap here and clip through the rail. This saves us about 40 seconds or so, depending on your execution through the dark room. But doing that there, he got that in 1 try with 1 buffer. That was incredible. This is a very precise trick, so I'm impressed that he pulled that off. Here on Jet's side, though, I do see he has at least 1 blue ball so far. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. That was the first cycle. Average Aghanim fight is around 3 blue balls. Anything more than that is usually something worth complaining about. Anything less than that, and you're like, well, if I don't PB, I stink. It's never good to be behind several minutes when you get 0 blue balls. That's I mean, it's great for your run. It's just everybody feels like they're under pressure when that happens. DRock going for the sexy statue. Doesn't pull it off, but I appreciate his effort. I believe Jet only had 1 blue ball. If somebody saw a second, let me know, but that's fantastic RNG. DRock, for reference, had 4 or 5. DRock does have full health walking into the basement of Palace of Darkness, so he gets to use sword beams here and save us a menu. He'll keep his hammer out so that he can say hi to our first friendly Tortuga friend, if you're a Spanish speaker like Emma. Here in the turtle room, though, this is one of the more dangerous rooms of the entire dungeon. You want to do those exact 2 hammers. Wow, he pretty much did that perfect. You want to have your hammer and have your sword out when you use the hammer so that you can keep yourself moving forward and not have to charge up again. It extends the hammer's range. And if you do that correctly, you can get them all in one fell swoop. Normally, turtles are a little bit difficult because hammering anywhere off of them will send them right back at you. You take a lot of damage in that room. And Helmosaur King here doesn't play around. You need 17 hammer attacks on the shell or 4 bombs to explode in order to remove this mask. You can also, if your timing's really good, you can despawn the fireball that we're about to see if he does so when the fireball is already on the screen. After that, it's about 6 or 7 slashes to finish up. Oh my goodness. He has just 1 heart. He cannot take any damage at all. He's got the tail swiping at him in a moment, and wow, he closes it out with the bow. That's some fast thinking. I mean, he only had a fraction of a second there to make that decision because that tail swipe was going to get him. I mean, like, he had to dodge the fireball or the tail either way. So that was really smart play from DRock. He saved that fight with that arrow. I'm definitely asking about that in the interview. Not too far behind him, we have Jet entering the first room of Palace of Darkness. We'll get to see what his strategies are for dealing with the mimics, bomb yumps, or hammer yumps, and and turtles, respectively. While we're waiting for Jet to get to a little bit more of an interesting portion of this dungeon, we do have an opportunity to see that DRock is mashing a lot of buttons. Here in the text screens, there's not a whole lot of things that we can do to make things go faster. Simply mashing as fast as possible is going to help advance text screens. One thing that a lot of newer players may not know, though, is that the last text box of a sequence of text boxes, you can clear that out with any face button. So most runners who will use L or R, because that is not actually used for anything else. But you could use the D-pad as well. You can use this in pretty much any text box of the game. I'm not exactly certain if the cutscene text boxes are different. However, this is something that you'll want to use to your benefit. You want to be pressing as many buttons as possible in general. You get to see a nice hammer dash out of DRock to head towards the Haunted Grove. Jet is on his way to his hammer yump now. Here at the Haunted Grove, DRock is going to stop by the tree guy to say, hey, I want your shovel and your flute. Jet, though, we're going to see what attempt he's going to make for the bomb jump. He's big in the randomizer community as well, so he definitely knows his bomb jump. His lineup looks good. Can he get linked to the right pixel? Perfectly executed. You'll notice that he places the bomb afterwards. This is more of a safety strategy. I myself do it. If you're not confident in the exact spacing of Link and the bomb, or if you're worried that you're going to mess up the jump, or if you want to just use less buffers, you can place just the one bomb. A lot of runners will place a second bomb and toss it over to blow open the wall at the same time. I'm in the camp that, hey, if you can get the trick done, get the trick done. If you're really good at it, then yes, start throwing a second bomb. Here we have DRock activating his flute. If there was a time where most runners out there would be picking up their safeties, it would be right before this point or right after this point. I don't believe he picked up the mushroom, although he may have picked it up to potentially do fake powder later, which is a very fun exploit. It does not appear this time that he's going for powder. Oh, and Jet nearly getting the sexy statue. I don't think I've even seen one yet. It's a really nice thing when you see it done, though. Some of the swag strats in this game are really rewarding to do. Does it help you get a faster time? I don't know, but is that the only thing that matters? Probably. With the Tortuga King taken care of, DRock is heading over to Thieves Town in the Village of Outcasts. You have to take the long way around. We don't have that Titan's Mitt yet. We will shortly, though. Here in the basement of Palace of Darkness, Jet does have full health, so he's going to get to... Well, he chooses not to skip the menu. He switched to bow anyway. He may have just forgotten that he had full health and could use sword beams. Not a big deal, though. He has a little bit of bad luck with the turtles flipping. That being said, though, he's only taken 2 hearts of damage so far. This should still be a manageable Helmasaur King fight. He's just going to have to be a little bit more careful about those fireballs and tail swings. On the other side of the screen, DRock is moving through Thieves Town. We don't have a whole lot we have to gather in this dungeon. In fact, we're just going to do a big old loop, grab that big key, and start heading down to rescue the quote-unquote Fair Maiden. Looking good so far for Jet. He's having a really good pod. All he has to do is make sure that he doesn't take any damage before he gets into the second phase. Taking a hug here would do 2 hearts of damage, so he can't really afford it. Oh, and he even gets a couple hammer swipes in against him. Hitting the jewel or the hitbox for Helmasaur King with the hammer is very tight, so he did really well with that fight. Well done, Jet. Well done. I'm always really nervous when I have a turtle party beforehand, so he handled that pretty well. On DRock's side, we managed to get through the Hellway, no problems. Took a little bit of damage in the process, but we're going to go activate the blind fight, or get ourselves ready for it. Blind doesn't like light. Jet's going to be hot on his heels once he gets his flute. If there's a time when he's probably going to pick up powder, I think it would most likely be then. He has run this game a few times, so I mean, I have to think that, you know, this is going to make the most sense. If he doesn't pick these things up now, though, he's likely to do so after Skull Woods, actually, when we would normally be picking up the Flippers and Quake. DRock on the right going to pick up the Fair Maiden, right, and also our Titan's Mitts, or Gold Gloves, depending on which Zelda franchise you identify most with. You know, in the short amount of time between this and Ocarina of Time, they really upgraded the Gold Gauntlets. I mean, Gold Gauntlets and Ocarina of Time, you were lifting like skyscraper-sized boulders. In this game, they're just a little darker. Looks like Jet pulled off a really nice hammer dash as well. Getting through that section can be kind of tight. The guards will chase after you pretty fast in the screen. We do get to see our blind fight out of DRock, though. This is a scripted fight, so as long as you do this correctly every single time with your movements, the fight will be identical every single time. In the first, each of these 3 phases that Blind has, he can take 3 hits no matter what the weapon is. He does take a little bit of damage there, so we're a little bit off script. But once you've gone through all 3 heads with 3 hits each, that's it for Blind. He's got 2, and that'll do it. That's a very clean Blind fight. It went just a little bit off script, but he recovered and dodged the fireballs very effectively. That's a fight that can go south real bad, real fast. If it did go south, if you did take a death there, then Blind would actually start in the upper middle section of the room, and the pattern would be completely different. So there would be a lot different, fighting to deal with there. Jed does pick up his flute. The flute he manages to get in 1 dig. Well done, well done. He knows where to find it. He's going to activate that as soon as possible and start picking up any other safeties. If he's going to do it, he'd probably do it now. Jed does pull off a really good spin speed here. He's going to use this to pass Usain Bolt, the fastest guard in Hyrule. If he's an example of what the police are like in Hyrule, then they really need to stop with the donuts. Frico in chat pointing out that I should not be talking during the national anthem. I apologize. You're absolutely right. Now that we've taken care of Blind, we're going to pick up the blacksmith, the toad, who will then become the blacksmith once we return to the light world. We're going to do this now because Blind doesn't really offer us any kind of advantage for having Tempered Sword. You don't finish the fight faster. Going through that dungeon isn't all that much more difficult. So this is just the most ideal time. We wouldn't want to leave, Thieves Town with the Titan's Mitts and come back if it's not going to offer us any advantage. So we have on the left-hand side with Jet, he's picking up his powder. He's also going to head back to Kakariko to make his way to Thieves Town himself. He's going to have to take a long way as before. He would, if he was missing any health, he would probably bonk into this tree up here to pick up some apples. If you're ever in a tight spot with health there, you actually heal 2 hearts per apple, and there's like 3 or 4 of them that spawn from that tree. In the meantime, DRock has his bread sword. It looks to me like those dwarves are literally smithing bread. I don't know about you guys. Or like a pepperoni roll or something. In the meantime, though, he's going to head over to Skull Woods. It doesn't pull off the fence dash, unfortunately. I'm not a fan of that. I don't do it either, so I gotta work on that myself. He's gonna pick up some rupees, though. He picked up 300 on his way to the dwarf before. He's gonna pick up 300 now. With the 600 that we get out of those, we're going to have enough for our even worse extortionist friend, the Zora King. He's going to charge us $500, 500 rupees, to have the right to swim in any deep water. This will leave us with about 100 rupees left over. We could use those if you really had to for a bottle or for a potion. Generally speaking, though, our runners don't really care about rupees after those flippers. Shoutouts to Blunt Bunny on Jet Screen. DRock having a very good Gibdo room. Those Gibdos will follow you around the room based on your position, so moving that statue into position while also avoiding the floor masters is no small task. A lot of runners will opt to just kill them instead, although DRock did a really great job of just simply avoiding them. It is optimal to avoid them. Jet picking up his key next to Blind. He's going to make his way to the back half and hopefully has a good Hellway as well because he's a little low on health. He does, however, have the powder, so he will have a couple of opportunities to heal come out. Now here in the Hellway, if you're really good at lining yourself up on the exact right pixel and the RNG is just perfect, you can get through there without taking a single hit, but Jet unfortunately takes a death there. I'm not sure he did not pick up a fairy yet either. That's rough. I'm not sure if he picked up his bug catching net or bottle either. So he may have just been picking up the powder to use as a healing item. That's going to be tough recovery. Thankfully, he didn't do it after the blind fight started, though. That would have been much worse. DRock moving through Skullwood so fast I didn't even have time to talk about him. The Skullwoods in general is a very confusing dungeon for most casual players of the game. However, we only need to go pick up that big key and head right back to pick up the fire rod. We're going to take that to the back half of the dungeon, and just like that, we are all the way to the boss fight. We are just a room or two behind that. So we're going to have Mothiel on the right-hand side of the screen, as Jet here is having a very precarious Hellway yet again. This is tough. I mean, he wants that anti-fairy, but he also needs to dodge these floating enemies. And moving into the Mothiel fight, we have a very RNG-heavy fight. However, if you can kill him pretty quickly, you can mitigate pretty much all of that. Looks like DRock did a pretty good job of exactly that. Part of what makes this fight so difficult, those conveyors in the floor, they move in random directions. Those spikes will cross the room at random times. And Mothiel himself doesn't like to hang out anywhere except for the corners of the room. Unfortunately, because of the way damage is coded, Mothiel will not take damage from spikes, so if you knock him into spikes, it will overwrite any damage you just did. So our runners want to focus on mostly bringing him into the center of the room. If that fight goes off rails, that can turn south real fast. All in all, though, he had a really good moth fight. He only took 2 hits, which is very good. If you do the right strategy early on, you can actually get a double hit to start the fight. What you would have to do is you would have to poke dash Mothula into the block that's directly north of him when he spawns. Because that's not a spike, you can actually get 2 hits on him, and that's a really great way to shorten the fight up. If you have any magic left going into that fight, it's also very wise to use the Fire Rod, as not only does it do a whole lot of damage to Mothula, it helps to unstick him from the walls. He does tend to bounce a little further away, so you can use that to reposition Mothula, and many runners do exactly that. Looks like DRock was in good position without him, though. He's going to take the bridge warp here now that we've killed Aghanim 1, so that we can very handily get both Quake and the flippers in one go. If you were going to wait to take powder for any reason, as late as possible, this would probably be the last good opportunity to get it. Generally speaking, though, if you're confident in your dungeons all the way through Skull Woods, I mean, Vitreous would probably be the one reason I would take it if I hadn't taken it yet. With that, Jet is on his way to his blind fight. We're hoping we get a perfect fight out of Jet here, because that will help him catch up a little bit of this time difference. We certainly don't want to see him have to do a refight. One of the other challenging things about blind is that every 4th shot from those fireball heads is going to track Link's position. The other ones are shooting in predetermined positions. So that's part of the reason why it's so hard to actually plan ahead in this fight and improvise. But Jet does manage to get through it cleanly, only taking half of his health and damage. That was a really good fight. With that done, Jet is going to be grabbing his Tempered Sword to make his assault on Mothula, while DRock here is paying ransom money for the ability to swim. I mean, like, these flippers have got to have, like, motors attached to them. I don't understand who in Hyrule would charge 500 rupees for anything, let alone a lousy bunch of rubber flippers. Kiki, eat your heart out. You're nowhere near as big of an extortionist. With all of these things done, DRock is going to make his next dungeon attempt. It looks like he's going to take the warp here in the water, something that can be very easy to forget if you happen to have an instinct to go to flute like I do. But he's going to take that over to the Ice Palace entrance. Ice Palace here is a very fast dungeon if done correctly. And if we're lucky and we don't have any deaths in unfortunate places, aka Cold Stare, then we should be on our way to Misery Mire or Swamp shortly thereafter. Jet here is saying hi to our froggy friend. I feel like he probably belongs a little better in a different RPG of the same era. Shoutouts to those who know what I'm talking about. Here in Ice Palace, we have a lot of rooms that we can just simply skip. See you later, Penguinators. And in the next room, as long as you get to the switch, we can do the same thing. As the difficulty of the games ramps up, or difficulty of the dungeons ramps up, we're going to see more and more anti-fairies laced throughout these dungeons. Being that Jet does have the powder, there's a pretty decent chance that he's going to save himself from a couple of much more costly deaths later on in the run. They're put there for a reason. Growing up, I did not realize that you could use powder on them. I wish I had known that. On DRock's screen, we're going to see a really nice bomb strategy. If you can place that bomb there and throw the pot to knock the Stalfos Knight up, you can actually kill them both with one hit. This is not only just a fast strategy to kill them, but it's also a lag reduction strategy as well. That room is one of the laggiest rooms in the game. Next, we're going to see him do the Ice Palace bomb jump, whereas Jet, on the other side, does manage to get the half magic on his way to Mothula. Oh wow, DRock pulling off the hammer swag strats on the bomb jump, and unfortunately falls right off right after. I did the same thing in my last race, so no hard feelings there, man. I know how that is. Jet getting half magic is going to do a lot of things for him. We have the Trinex fight, of course, but this is also a safety for Cold Stare himself. Cold Stare, you have to, if you don't have half magic, you have to use all of your magic to destroy the ice shell. You could also use sword beam strats if you have full health to register extra hits on the shell and save some of your magic that way. But this way, Jet doesn't have to worry about his magic management at all. If he picks up even one magic fill throughout the dungeon, he's going to be fine. DRock skipping by the blue mail room because we don't care about safety with the with hearts of damage. He could actually get it. I mean, there's no reason that you can't. It's just you have to go all the way around the dungeon. In this route where we do the bomb jump, we skip the big key completely. Jet's making his way to one of the many Skullwoods entrances, whereas DRock here is making his assault on Cold Stare. Let's see if you can pull off the spin strategy and keep them in the corner. That's the best optimal way to kill them. Whether you're doing a poke dash or a slash, it doesn't matter. You just don't want them to escape from you. Cold Stare does 4 hearts of damage when he collides with you, so he was very close there. Does manage to get a close to optimal kill on Cold Stare. This is one place where if you were to die, it's extremely punishing. You have to have magic to get back into this dungeon, and you pretty much just got to farm the pickles outside. That's about the only recourse you have, unless you can, you know, buy a magic potion or something. I don't think he has a bottle, though, so I don't even think he could do that. Always a sigh of relief when we get through Cold Stare, no problems. Looks like Jet is going to do a bomb jump to go acquire his fire rod. You would normally have to fall through the hole just north of this entrance in order to get to this. You'd pull a switch and it would destroy the walls behind these mini moldworms. But just like we did in Tower of Hera, we're going to do a bomb jump the same way here. Jet unfortunately picked up the bomb on accident. He managed to kill a mini moldworm with it. I mean, that's not bad, but I'm sure he wasn't too happy about the loss of that bomb. There are a couple of ways that you can return to the entrance of the room. You can use that mirror, or you can simply fall off the edge. I believe he chose the mirror there to preserve health. With Ice Palace down, DRock is now going to proceed to Swamp Palace. Swamp Palace is a really great part of our run for our runners. Our runners have been going through some pretty difficult sections leading up to this. Swamp Palace is a bit of a breather. As described by some of my previous co-commentators. That's the phrasing I'm going to use. Normally, you would be doing this dungeon in a different order, or you would be doing this in a casual playthrough, for the most part, as your second dungeon right after Palace of Darkness. Now, the only thing that prevents us from getting to dungeons or doing them out of order is just the items you have. We don't strictly need the hookshot to do many things until later, and it's mostly just going to save us some small time frames. Oh, here on the Mummy Hellway, Jet chooses to kill all of the mummies having that half magic. I agree with that choice. It's better to be safe here. But so we go back to the second dungeon as the 5th dungeon, simply because we don't need to come here anyway yet. With the Tempered Sword, we can also kill the boss, and we can kill the boss eye puffs that circle around him in one swipe instead of 2 with the Master Sword. This is a really useful way to speed up this dungeon. As DRock makes his way through Swamp Palace, Jet on the left is going to have his Mothiel fight. He tried to get the poke dash, didn't manage to pull it off. He did get a hit, and Moth is in the center of the screen, unfortunately taking a death. That's rough. Thankfully, it's not a huge time loss to get back there. It's just a little bit of time spent. One of the less punishing boss deaths. Being that he has half magic, he should probably try to use it to create some distance from himself in this Mothiel fight. That's probably the one thing that, you know, caught him up there. He was trapped between Mothiel and the spikes. Very rough position to be in. Looks like he's going to opt to try to pick up the Bunny Beam, which you can also turn into a fairy. He manages to get it. That's a tight window. Props to Jeff for pulling that off. You also have to be careful here in the 1.0 version of the game. That Wallmaster can actually pick you up even after you've fallen through that hole. He does get a poke dash, doesn't manage to collide with the block above him, so he got one hit there. This would be probably a great opportunity to use the fire rods. Yep, he's moving back to the center anyway. Oh, he's got to watch himself. There we go, nice. Jet pulling off the Mothula fight. With plenty of magic to spare, he should be pretty clean to move into Ice Palace, and assuming he's got a good bomb jump, this should be a pretty fast next dungeon for him. Here in Swamp Palace, though, we have DRock moving towards his big key. You had to drain the water, you had to pick up the key before you did that, make your way back around after you've knocked a switch down, and assuming he did hit the switch, he should be able to get the big key now. We'll get our hook shot shortly after. We're going to use this actually on our way to pick up the Ether Medallion, which is what we need to enter Misery Mire. You can use the hook shot to activate spin speed, or it's super speed actually, but it's very similar to spin speed, and using that state on a ladder, he can actually climb the ladder a lot faster, in particular Death Mountain where the Ether Medallion is. It's a technique we call sword climbing. You basically just have to do a hook dash, which is an item dash by pressing the Y and A button on the same frame, which activates that super speed. You do a hook dash on a ladder, and then while you have your sword held out, that will actually allow you to climb the ladder even faster than, say, doing spin speed. Jet's making his way to pick up his flippers and Quake, while DRock is moving on to the hook dash room of the same name. He does a hook dash there so he can grab the pot immediately. Had a little bit of trouble picking it up, but as you can see, using the hook shot to hook onto an object that will pull you is always going to be faster than dashing. So if you have an opportunity to do that with enough distance that it makes sense, you're going to see our runners prefer to use the hook shot whenever they have it out. Jet wins the lottery. We're having some discussion in chat about intended dungeon order. I really love what they did with the Link Between Worlds, where, you know, you really could just do just about any dungeon with the exception of like 1 or 2 prerequisites. You know, that's something that I think they saw as a success in this game. I mean, it clearly is popular with the fans. We have a huge community around it. Oddly enough, Jet didn't actually get the Quake to the Quake monster to spawn. As DRock moves into the Argus fight, he doesn't get the 0 cycle strategy. Let's see if he can pull this off in 1 or 2 cycles. The cycles in the Argus fight is defined by how he spins those puffs around, and if you see a slight delay before he does his next attack, that's because he's going through a certain spin animation now. So DRock had a 2 cycle there, which is perfectly fine. He didn't take, you know, too much damage. He's still in good health, and he gets 2 spin slashes to finish it out. So DRock is going to make his way to Misery Mire next. Jet is on his way to Ice Palace now, or shortly after picking up these flippers. And there we go. Between our runners, 1,000 rupees spent on simply having the ability to swim through deep water. If this pair of flippers doesn't have like a rebreather attached to it, if it doesn't have like an oxygen filtration system, like this thing should be like moving me through the water like a torpedo at that price. DRock is finishing up one of the longest cutscenes of the game. Meanwhile, Jet narrowly avoiding a Zora friend who wanted to say hi even though they just stole like a huge amount of money from you in a racket. Now that we've finished Swamp Palace, DRock needs to head up to the top of Death Mountain in order to pick up his Ether Medallion from the tablet at the very top up there. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about quick warps. Now that we've fluted our way to Death Mountain, the position of the camera when we first show up here is actually different than if we come up here with the old man. So now if we wanted to do the quick warp, DRock is going to have to enter from the center of the lowered portal, or center from the portal up here, and if he wants to get the quick warp on top of Spectral Rock, it's a little bit further up and left than it was the first time around. Looks like both of our runners are moving very smoothly through their segments. DRock here picking up his ether off the tablet. You can actually read that book from further over to the right, and you'll see Jet on the left actually managed to get a bomb to hit both the switch and the bombable floor, allowing him to avoid a slash of the switch in just a few moments. He also gets the good Stalfos kill. These Stalfos Knights will almost always, well, they only spawn bombs. Whether or not they spawn a large stack of bombs is random. In this situation, if our runners can get their bomb jump in the first try, they actually don't want to pick up a ton of bombs, because there are a couple of opportunities later on, like we talked about before, where you can use your last bomb to basically get a free menu switch. Let's see if Jet can pull this off. This is a common tech in Randomizer, which he's also known for running, so I wouldn't be surprised to see if he can pull this off here. He does have very low health, though, but he has the lineup with the bomb. Oh, that's rough. This is a dangerous position for Jet because he doesn't have a stored fairy, I don't believe. Or maybe he does. He got the bomb lineup perfectly, so I mean, if he pulls that off, we're in good shape. No, unfortunately, he's going to have to restart the dungeon. That's rough. Meanwhile, on DRock's screen, we have an attempt at the bird toss, hopefully. I have faith in DRock. We commentated together. Let's see it. Come on, come on, come on. This man loves memes. Shout out to DRock. Here in Misery Mire, it's very good that DRock walked in with no damage. Using these sword beams, he can get a faster strategy here in Mire 2 is basically the second room of this dungeon. And wow, he gets it in one cycle of the Whiz Ropes. When you do that room right, it's not going to be much more optimal than that. That's pretty much as good as you can expect for in a run, particularly a race. If there's a room that you want to practice that looks sweet at this game, it's that room. Jet's getting some really unfortunate jelly RNG. Just the way that they're moving throughout this room is terrible for him. I'm not sure exactly what Jet's trying to do here. He may just be used to using bombs to flip that switch. The thing is, though, is that he doesn't have to use a bomb there. He can just simply swipe the switch right before the bomb jump. Thankfully, there is a guaranteed bomb drop here, so he will be able to kill those Stalfos Knights, which will give him a nice 4-drop, too. Okay, so he is in good shape to do the bomb jump. This is good. You'll also see just... I barely missed it, but on DRock's screen, when you are pushing a block, you can actually use the fire rod or hook shot through the block. It's as if the block's not there, but only while the block is in motion. You use this to great effect to get through those torch rooms a lot faster. Now, for most runners who are running pretty effectively or, you know, are pretty consistent, when you get to that torch room, you're usually about 20 to 21 minutes away from the end of your run. So DRock here is around a 130 pace. He's doing really well. Many runners will use that as just kind of a benchmark. Jet had a little bit of difficulty with the bonk there, but he does make it through the Ice Palace bomb jump cleanly. Thank goodness. That's a stressful place for any runner. We'll also get to see his fun sword swipe or sword spin tactics on the Penguinators there. That was good. As DRock on the other side is going to be picking up his Cane of Sumeria. Now, if you were going to go for the silver arrows or the gold sword, or I guess both, you would typically do Misery Mire a little earlier in your run, being that having pendants or crystals 5 and 6 would allow you to have access to the big bomb and the pyramid fairy. So in this case, we're going to do it last because we really don't need the Cane of Samaria for anything. With the Ice Palace Bomb Jump, we get to skip this switch that Jetabb, or we get to skip having to bring the Cane of Samaria there. Normally, the intended strategy in the dungeon is to walk all the way through the dungeon and push that switch down after you've done a big roundabout. So you can do it either way. Looks like Jet's very close to his Cold Stare fight. He's going to only have a heart and a half missing, which is pretty good. Being that the hugs do 4 hearts of damage each, he can actually take 2 full hits from the Cold Stare itself. So this is going to be relatively safer. He has half magic. I should be able to use that to good advantage here. Here in Cold Stare, you have 2 things to look out for. The 4 heart damage that you get from the eyeballs, he unfortunately let go of his spin a little early. Not only that, but you have Flying Ice that will do 2 hearts of damage every time it collides with you. Right now, he can only take damage from ice. If he gets hit by Cold Stare, he's out. This is really tense. He did make really good use of the lag frames from destroying one of these Cold Stares to position himself, and whew, he got through the fight. Good job, Jet. That is a clench moment for any commentator. Here on the right side, though, we have DRock walking into Vitreous. Vitreous is a pretty simple fight, pretty straightforward. The strategy our runners are gonna do is the WQ strategy. He's our second place runner as far as world records go. But you want to use the goo that's poisonous on the ground to take 1 heart of damage. You want to use the iframes from that to do sword spins while you're in the middle of the eyeballs to hit as many of them as possible. If you do that right, you can take as low as 4 hearts of damage. It's much better than getting hit by the eyeballs directly, which do 4 hearts of damage. Using those iframes helps out a lot here. DRock does manage to get it in just 1 cycle, and then after you've destroyed all the eyeballs, you just need to pump 8 arrows into Vitreous himself, and that's an easy crystal for him. With only 3 hearts left, he did a pretty good job there. He didn't get hit by anything. Both of our runners with some close calls here, but they managed to clutch out both of their fights. Proud of you guys for that. Very nervous moment here. With Vitreous vanquished, DRock here is going to head up to Turtle Rock, our favorite place in the entire world. He has already grabbed his Ice Rod, I believe, so he should be able to warp straight up to Death Mountain. This time around, when we go to Death Mountain, we're going to take the other way up. The way to the right of Death Mountain, where you climb on that side, is actually a little bit faster if you're going to head to the portal. As far as how much of a difference it is, it's not crazy or anything, but we need to have the hook shot out anyway, so it's a smart strategy. We'll see if he gets to do the... Nope. No luck with the Waffle House, unfortunately. Some Flying Cabbage doing some extra hearts of damage to him. Jet on the other screen is about to make his assault on Swamp Palace. He needs to drain the water first. We didn't see a ton of implementations here in A Link to the Past of, you know, how similar Light and Dark World was, but this was probably the best example of it. You get to drain the water from the swamp in the Light World, and in the Dark World, you can now pass through the dungeon. DRock does take advantage of the fairy drop from those bonkable rocks outside of Turtle Rock. Those are a guaranteed spawn, and he wants to have his full health walking into this dungeon. I don't blame him. It's a smart plan. Seems to be pretty good at super speed hammer pegs, which I can never do. I'm impressed by that. You can also do an item dash with this Quake Medallion, and if you do an item dash in this exact location, which is actually a manual staircase, you can get super speed and jump off the platform. It's kind of hard to do, though, and it doesn't really save much time at all, like a couple frames. So, fun to do, nice swag strat, never really that big of a deal. We have chat asking about the difference in our runners' times right now. Jet had a couple of unfortunate deaths. He had one death to Mothula and a couple of other dungeon deaths. He's still running really strong, though. Keep in mind, Jet's PB right now is at a 149, so he is definitely within striking range. DRock over here not too far off from a 130 pace, so both of our runners are fixing for a really good time this run. In general, between these runners, they're having really good boss fights. While we have had a couple of missteps, they've managed to clutch out some very close encounters, so it's going to be interesting to see how these runners will handle Ganon's Tower and Ganon himself. Ganon's a fight that, if you don't practice it for Tempered Sword, it can go south real bad because a hug will kill you real quick. We have DRock, by the way, who did not manage to get the fairy from the manipulation. So he's going to go through the chomp room as if they were not even a problem. He got really friendly RNG from them. So it didn't end up being necessary in the first place, but that one enemy manipulation we talked about in Hyrule Castle where we were avoiding killing certain blue guards, it's exactly for that reason. DRock will have another opportunity to get this manipulation through another set of pokies that he's going to fight in the next couple of rooms. He may want to pick it up since it's going to be another 5 hearts to heal. Actually, I was wrong about that. He is a guaranteed key drop here. But shout out to Blum Bunny on DRock's side. Jet's finishing up the front half of Swamp here. He's going to be making his assault on Argus shortly. Not a whole lot to talk about in Swamp Palace. Mostly, we just want to avoid taking as much damage as possible. He's going to pick up these safety hearts here at the bottom of this room. Commonly avoided by a lot of runners because you tend to take more damage, just trying to get them. But he did come out ahead, so if this saves him in the Argus fight, it'll have been a good decision. Looks like DRock did manage to get the fairy drop, so that's about 40 or 50 minutes in the works. So it just goes to show you how optimized this game is. We're making decisions that will impact us more than 2/3 of the way further into the run. With that being done, though, DRock is going to make his way towards the dark rooms downstairs and the laser bridge, where we'll get to see another skip. Makes really good use of sword beams to hit the pegs here. Doing so, he only takes 1 hit from the roller. I mean, you can avoid it entirely, but to only take 1 hit there and not get locked there, it's very easy to put yourself behind the behind the pegs on the left-hand side of the screen, particularly if you're using Cane of Samaria. In which case, you would have to actually do a really fancy strategy with like punting the Samaria block, and then you might be able to hit the switch. I didn't do it right in my race. I actually had to reset the dungeon. You don't want to be in that position. DRock here is going to have his laser bridge skip coming up, though. He did not pick up Mirror Shield, of course. So we get rid of this red jeweled enemy first. We dash through the laser. You might be asking, hey, how do we dash through that laser? That's ridiculous. Like, collision. So the front end of lasers and fire snakes, those are the only parts of those that actually do the damage to Link. So if you were to, dash through with good timing, you can actually collide with the back half of the laser and it does nothing to you. Moving forward, though, looks like DRock and Jet are very close to their respective boss fights. Jet may attempt to try to do double heals here. Nope, he just goes to pick up the hearts. DRock walking into the fight here with Trinex. Trinex is named Trinex for having 3 heads. I'm sure you can figure that out. We're going to use Ice Rod in the first head. We're going to switch to Fire Rod before we do the last swipe because you actually cannot switch items while the boss is in its death animation with these explosions you see here. After doing 2 hits with the respective rods and 5 slashes, we're going to move on to the third phase. Third phase, after we're done with all of this TNT explosion, we just got to hit him enough times in the head and then the center of the body, and we'll close this out. Very nice fight from DRock. Got that in 1 cycle. Jet here is moving on to his Argus fight. We need to destroy all these pusses we saw before with DRock. Big thing here is just avoid taking too many hugs. It's very easy to get hit while these things are flying around in a circle. Looks like he's going to get a 2 cycle out of it. There's a couple different ways you can deal with the last phase. Some people go for the quick kill with the Fire Rod. I prefer this double spin slash strat, though he did take a hit. Time to play Geometry Wars with Argus. And with that, both of our runners have made it through their next boss fights. Excellent. So DRock here is heading to Ganon's Tower to take on his final attempt towards Ganon himself. He's on a great pace right now. I mean, I don't believe we're going to hit a personal best here unless we have a fantastic Ganon's Tower and Ganon, but it's not exactly that far out of reach. He's having a fantastic race so far. Jet here is not all that far behind his personal best either. Give me just a moment to look up his stream for his splits. So by the looks of Jet's splits, he looks to be about 4.5 minutes behind where he was in his personal best run, although by the looks of things, it looks like he lost a fair amount of time in his personal best on both Misery Mire and Ganon's Tower. So if he's able to have clean execution on these dungeons, he stands a really great chance of being ahead of his personal best. Looks like DRock himself is about 50 seconds behind his personal best as of his last split. So this is a really exciting race. We're getting really great execution out of these runners. To do this in a race setting is even more impressive. You know, a lot of these runners they'll reset their runs if they have, you know, bad Aghanim RNG. They'll reset. Well, I don't mean necessarily these runners, but many runners do. So to do this in a real-time attack setting is fantastic. We get Ice Rod picked up out of Jet, and we get to see some pretty slick boomerang strats and hookshot strats out of DRock here. The key thing about this is that we just want to avoid extra menuing. You'll see here that instead of, you know, waiting for the Fire Snake, we're just going to bonk right over it. And then doing this, we're allowed to carry our hookshot from the last screen. Ganon's Tower is a really great place to watch if you want to see some of the best execution of these runs. Our runners have spent a lot of time working on this particular dungeon. DRock, unfortunately, having a bad hookshot there, but just slides right back around. He'll also try to do a quick skip here where you bonk against the wall to get past this warp tile. Doesn't save a lot of time, it saves you 2 warps, but, you know, everything counts. Jet's going to make his way to pick up his Ether Medallion at the same time. Looking at DRock's arrow count, he has plenty of arrows to deal with Ice Armos in the next room. You would normally want to see at least 18. I would prefer to have 20 just in case I miss a couple. But we get to see that fight out of him next. One thing that our runners are going to take advantage of with the Ice Armos is any Armos fight that you do, whether it's this one or the Eastern Palace, the Armos will not actually circle the room until they've all reached their resting position once they're all in a circle. So in this particular scenario, he actually delayed the animation cycle so that he can get in position on the ice to plant the rest of the arrows perfectly. That was a very well executed Ice Armos fight, and with that, DRock has his big key. He's going to head upstairs, doesn't need to pick up any other keys along the way. This is just a mad dash to Agatu. Meanwhile, we have Jet on his way to check to see if we have a love for the memes. He seems to like them because he is dodging this Murderedactyl pretty well. The real burning question here, folks, is it bird toss or is it bird carry? You have only a few seconds to guess in chat. A bird toss it is. We are 2 for 2 for bird tosses. We are 0 for 2 on fence dashes. I think this is about where I would expect it to be for just about any normal race. Seems like chat also agrees with me that the toss is ultimately preferable, and our runners are in sync with our desires here as an audience. So shout out to the runners for making the memes happen. You guys are the real champs. Jet does manage to get through Mire 2, had a couple of mishaps, taking a little bit of damage. It becomes harder to do that room once you don't have the sword beams. DRock is going through a tear here in Ganon's Tower, though, making the gauntlet look like it's easy. He even gets the really nice Fire Rod strat on that Stalfos. The hitbox on those Stalfos is a little bit larger than you might expect. With that, though, he's going to make his way into the Land Molus fight. Now that we have the Fire Rod, this is much easier. Looks like because he doesn't have to pick up the powder, he's just going to go for a sword spin. He does miss because of the short hop, which is really bad RNG. Looks like he should be able to do it in 2 cycles, though, because that bread sword is really powerful. Very nice execution from DRock. You can make it a one cycle, but honestly, if you get it in two, it's pretty good. SMP runner asking in chat about about bird toss. Looks like Medivo already covered it, but yeah, I mean, it's nothing that you're strictly required to do. It is quite literally just a meme in the community. DRock, though, has just a heart and a half of health left. He's going to use Samaria to make sure he's separate from that Wizrobe, doesn't have to take the risk. Takes another hit and dies in Ganon's tower. Oh no, that's a really punishing death. All right, so for those who aren't familiar, you know, because he doesn't have fairies, he has to climb the entire gauntlet again. That's rough. I mean, he's got to be feeling really bad about that. We do get an opportunity to explain the Mimics room, though. Mimics are going to follow the same input or the opposite inputs of Link. So what we have to do to manipulate them is we just have to be smart about where we position Link. Through both Mimics 1 and 2, DRock did really well there. He had a slight hiccup with the first Mimic room, but recovered very nicely. So with Mimics, you just need to, you know, make sure they're not facing you because those red Mimics will shoot at you. All in all, though, you know, that couldn't have gone much better. Usually most runners will use a couple sword slashes while against an obstacle, or they'll just simply hold their sword out or hold the wall. Lots of different strategies you can use against them. Now that we've had that mishap, though, it looks like DRock is going to go after these safety fairies on the ascent going into Gauntlet 1. Jet here, having picked up his Cane of Samaria, he's making his way towards the basement. He's ready to take on Vitreous himself. One thing you'll notice is DRock, he used an arrow as soon as he entered the room to kill that Stalfos. The Stalfos is going to move in a random direction. If you time that as soon as you enter, you'll always hit him. Arrows are really strong here in the Gauntlet, so it's good that he has a large arrow count walking into this, because that could have been a disaster if he didn't have enough to take care of the Mimics. Overall, he's doing a really good job of recovering. I mean, this is one of those deaths that, you know, gets a lot of people out there to kind of throw their controller. I mean, that's one of the hardest places to die in the game next to Cold Stare, I would say. Here on Jet's side, we're going to flip that crystal switch so we can get through the next room. He's going to drop a bomb and then hit the switch in that room. Looks like he does have enough magic to heal again before Vitreous. He will probably wait until he goes up the next set of staircases, though. DRock on the other side does get the one cycle Amulet on this attempt, so that's going to help him recover some of his lost time from the previous ascent. Does a really good job of the Samaria strats. So using the Cane of Samaria on these Wizrobes is great because you can hit them in cardinal directions. You'll see he places it directly to the left of the first one and swipes the last one. He placed it a little bit too high up, though, so it didn't hit the one in the bottom right corner, but easy recovery. He did really well there. Let's see how Jet handles the Vitreous fight. I believe because he's a rando runner, he probably does know the WQ strat from having seen it a lot of times. Yep. The key with the WQ strat that he's doing here, you're going to get these hugs with these enemies if you accidentally poke the eyeballs instead of doing a full sword slash. The way to prevent that is you need to spend a little bit more time in the goo off to the side to finish your sword charge, and then you can dive in to do the full damage. You want to time it with your iframes, so it's a rhythm that you kind of have to get used to, but he's in a really dangerous spot right now. If he takes any damage from any source right now, he is dead. Jet, you're making me nervous, man. Also of note, you see that Vitreous is doing these lightning attacks. They speed up as you destroy more of the eyeballs because of less lag. But he does make it through. He's going to launch 8 quick arrows through. And Jet is through the Vitreous fight. You can unclench your fists, folks. We have made it. Here on DRock's side, though, we have the Moldorm 2 fight. Now that we have the Bread Sword, this is cakewalk. We're not going to see any hover strats out of our runners today. We're just going to use the hook shot to take that chest. Here's another example of hook shotting through a block. Greenham, I said fists because PG-13. Looks like Chad is fulfilling that that sentence for me. But on DRock's side, we have the Aghanim 2 fight. It's very similar to Aghanim 1, except now there's 3 of them. The shadow forms, or the false images that he has, are always going to do the reflective attacks. And original Aga himself can do a coin flip like before the blue ball attack. So he doesn't always do it, 50-50 chance. Our ideal scenario is we hit him with 3 in one go, but he does get it in, I think, 3 cycles, might have been 4. With that, he's heading on to his Ganon fight. Everybody cheer him on. This is a really tense moment for his run. Looks like Jet had a pretty clean movement through the Waffle House, as we like to call it. He's going to make his approach on Turtle Rock next. Being that his personal best is about 17-18 minutes from now, he still has a really good window to pull off a personal best here if he has a good Turtle Rock and Ganon's Tower. Walking into the Ganon fight, though, we have a strategy here DRock does. He does a sword spin in between the Trident and Ganon himself. This allows him to get 2 extra swipes in there. If you do that effectively, you can do this first phase in 1 cycle. We need 12 hits per cycle with a Tempered Sword. Sword spin's obviously doing extra damage. He does actually get the poke dash strategy in the middle of the Ring of Fire, as Johnny Cash might call it. And gets the 1-in-1, so he manages to get 1 cycles on both phases. He's moving into the 3rd phase now. He just needs to do 1 attack per time that Ganon stops and attempts to do his fire spin. He won't do the fire spin if you get the sword slash off before he jumps. And after 4 of those attacks, he moves on to phase 4 after he tells us about the arrows or something like that. I don't know, that's what randos do. If you light this left torch before the right one, you get the torch glitch, keeping the right torch open at all times. And now we just need to light the other remaining one. Using that, we can use the fire rod and have a little more distance. If you time it right, you can actually get 3 sword spins per cycle. Ganon himself is only vulnerable to our sword attacks in this phase right as he is about to warp. So you could do a slash if you're a madman and have like frame perfect timing. Most people will do a sword spin, but 12 and he will be done with this fight. He's having a really good Ganon fight so far. There's a good example of how you get a triple. It works best when you have a sword spin charged up pretty well with the lantern timing. And we're just a couple sword spins away. DRock with a fantastic Ganon fight. Wow. That definitely beats my gold. So he even charges a dash going into the victory fanfare animation. If you do that a little too close to the ledge, you actually can fall off. Goblala, he did fall into the Ring of Fire, but he did not fall down. He did not burn. He managed to emerge victorious. That Ring of Fire. Let's see if we can get DRock into the commentary channel to ask him about this run. He had a really great race. Meanwhile, looks like Jet is making his way through Turtle Rock. He is going to be heading to the Chomp Room, one of the most dangerous rooms in the game. RNG being favorable to him, giving him the left chomp with a little bit of space. He could still get hit, though. Makes good use of the Cane of Samaria, and he has a chomp parked right on his face. Oh, boy. Wow. All right, so all he has to do is just powder a fairy, and we're in good shape. And we are joined by DRock. DRock, GG, nice race.
Hey, Judah, what's up?
Not much. There's a couple of clinch moments in that race. My God.
Yeah, there were quite a few.
All in all, though, a fantastic run. Did you have any particular moments where you felt like, oh, yes, I got that strat, or, anything that you felt really proud of in that run?
I think my boss fights felt pretty good, but apparently I nearly got killed by Viddy. I didn't even see it.
That's the thing with that strat is, you're so used to just kind of taking one heart at a time. I mean, it's safer, in my opinion, than taking hugs anywhere. So, I mean, yeah, you were down to 3 hearts. I think 2 hearts after you picked up the after you picked up the heart container, you had 3, but that was real close. We had a lot of people clenching in chat.
That's a 5 heart strat. I went in with 6. I know it well enough. I was able to pull it off.
Hey, well, you definitely impressed us here. Like you mentioned, very clean boss fights all around. Looking at the difference between, I think you had 1 or 2 deaths in this run, didn't you?
I want to say I just had the one on the bridge in Ganon's Tower. That bridge is just... It's been trolling me a lot lately. I've been getting hit by those trident guards a lot.
Which is rough, as it looked like you were trying to do. You stay on the right side, which is typically safer. I think somebody's done the math out there that 99% of the time you're not going to get hit there.
I got hit twice in a row.
Yeah, that was brutal. But you did a really good job getting right back on the horse to go right after it. Other than that, though, I mean, were there any particular places you felt like you lost time in this run?
I know Meyer was kind of messy, and obviously having to do the Ice Palace bomb jump twice didn't help me. But
yeah, I find myself doing that a lot.
Overall, I mean, G Tower was fine until the death, and then even going back through it was fine. Swamp, I need to clean up a lot. Swamp was messy. And there's the time lost at Ice Palace was on that IPBJ, so Swamp, Meyer, T-Rock to the end.
Well, hey, I'm definitely not the only person. It looks like chat's all agreeing with me. It looked like that Ganon was a fantastic fight. I mean, you were on a tear, just on a mission.
That was a gold for me.
Holy cow!
That was a 5-second gold.
5 seconds? That's a lot of time when you run this game as much as you do. Wow.
That was my first sub-2 Ganon, too.
So I take it then you probably split at the end of Aghanim, then?
I split when Link lands on the pyramid.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's an incredible time. Wow. So DRock, I think you've already had 1 match. Is that right? This should be your 2nd?
This was my 3rd match.
Very nice. So where does that place your record for the entire tournament? I'm looking for the challenge right now.
I'll be 2-1 after this.
That's fantastic. Then that should, in all likelihood, advance you to the elimination bracket. Then at this point.
Yeah, it's still 1 more match, I believe, in this group. But I want to say Saban's 3-0 and I'm 2-1.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at the challenge page right now. What group are you in?
Snapdragon. So you, I think.
Yep, exactly what you're saying. So it looks like Yelzrake and the Sabin, or Sabin, whatever his pronunciation is supposed to be, it looks like they still have to race. By the looks of things, it would take Yelzrake winning his race against the Sabin in order for this to become a tiebreak situation.
And then I think at that point it goes to the best single race in the group stages, where I have against Yelzrake, I had a 130.50.
That's phenomenal. Oh my god. Well, so I think that's going to put you in a pretty solid position. I mean, we'll still be watching out for that race as well, but it's got to feel like a relief getting all 3 of these races done.
Oh yeah, it's for sure. I got some work to do for a marathon at the end of the month, so I wanted to get these group stage matches done, get the marathon out of the way, and then resume my training for 128, 127.
Yeah, it's got to feel like a very long grind to get to there. I mean, you have to deal with all the RNG of the run.
Yeah, for sure. As far as RNG goes, I mean, I was in Agatha with 16 arrows. So I got some good drops along the way.
I'm no stranger to that myself. Just to really quickly tie us back to the race here, Jet is currently fighting Trinex and having some very unfortunate luck with how the Trinex heads have been moving around. He's through his 3rd cycle of it. But it looks like the Ice Head's going to be a challenge here. If he takes a single hug, he should be dead. Oh, no. You probably don't see the commentary stream yet, but he unfortunately took a death from Trinex there. So that's going to be... he did take the safety door, though, so we should be good there.
When I finished up, I pulled it up on my phone, so I'm watching it now. I've yet to catch up to the death. There's the death. That's how far I am behind on this.
You know, though, it's nice to be interviewing a fellow commentator, because it feels a little bit like we're just watching the commentary.
Yeah, it's true.
Speaking of which, thanks for commentating with me the other day.
Hey, no problem. I felt like you and I did a pretty good job with it, too. I felt like we kind of rolled off of each other really well.
Greatly appreciate those remarks. In the meantime, though, as he is pointing out in chat, everybody please cheer on Jet. He is still having a really good run despite a couple of unfortunate falls, so we just need to see him take care of Trinex here, and I'm sure we're going to have a really great Ganon's Tower out of him.
Let's go, Jet. Let's finish strong, buddy. Come on. So, fun fact, Jetabb was actually in my group for the Earthbound Boogie Percent tournament in November.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was kind of funny to see him in my group stage again here.
You know, I was looking at the spreadsheet that we made for the runner bios, and I saw that Jet has a sub 4 in Earthbound. I don't have much of a frame of reference for that. That's probably a pretty fast time, isn't it?
Yeah, sub 4 is a very, very good time. But what category is it?
That I'm not sure about. I'm gonna check that. I'm looking at his page on speedrun.com. Looking at this.
I'm on.
I actually don't think he has it listed here. Oh, another fun fact too, for those of us who haven't noticed or haven't really pointed out yet, Jet is actually running on SNES Classic.
Oh, is that right? That's pretty cool.
For the audience out there, there are a lot of different ways to play this game. You don't have to necessarily have a Japanese 1.0 cart. We even have a couple of runners in our tournament who have been running 1.1 and 1.2. The major disadvantage to that is that you don't have the Japanese 1.0 exclusive glitches. For example, item dashing. You can't do a swag shovel dash if you're running a 1.1 or 1.2. So, I mean, I don't know why anybody would want to, but it's still tournament legal. It's still, leaderboard legal. And you can even do it in the SNES Classic or emulator, although we do have some specific requirements for emulator if you're going to be like in a top 20% run, for example. While I was talking over Jet's victory of Trinex, though, he is on his way to Turtle Rock. This should be exciting.
We would have been just wrapping up Turtle Rock.
Wait, did I say Turtle Rock or Ganon's Tower?
You said T-Rock. He's leaving T-Rock. He's heading towards T-Rock.
He is heading towards Ganon's Tower. Glad you got that.
Yeah, it looks like he's... Oh, yeah, I thought he was going into the stairs for a minute. It looks like he just caught himself on the dash and picked up a boulder. You saw that like 30 seconds ago, right?
Right. An interesting thing about this race is there was a couple of opportunities to, I think for Jet's side, to save a little bit of extra time. I feel like he probably would have benefited from grabbing the bug net and bottle. He's a good runner. It's just, sometimes in a race setting, it makes a lot more sense to just pick up the extra safety. Because, I think he would have had another 5 minutes time saved if he'd done that.
Not gonna, it's a hard run. It's a very hard run, not to learn, but to master. And,
absolutely.
Dropping safeties is a good way to get better, but you also can't really drop them until you're ready to. And in a race setting, if he was gonna feel more comfortable with bottle and net, then he absolutely should have gotten it. You know what I mean? You have to take the safeties you're comfortable with, even in a race.
And that's the rough thing too, is because we all know Jet from the community. He's obviously pretty good at this game. When it comes to no major glitches, it's just a brutal run. There's no shame in taking them, folks. If you are going to be one less death or deathless without or with the safeties, infinitely better than taking a death in a bad spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Finishing the run is paramount. This is one of those runs where it's like, the more runs you finish, the better you get. And I've always had this driven home with me when I was learning it, specifically by Scrivo and Greenham. Escape in Eastern doesn't matter. Once you get past that, that's when the things start to matter. And getting better over the whole course of the whole thing is pretty important.
That's a really good point to make, too, because, I mean, early on in the game, we really don't have those Pegasus boots that are going to make us quick. So, I mean, a lot of the time-saving techniques that are really going to save you a lot of time, Escape in Eastern, you might save a minute, but over the course of the rest of the run, how are you going to save that 10 to 15? So, yeah, you raised a really, really excellent point there. On Jet's screen, though, we have him heading towards Ice Armos. He does have 30 arrows and a full heal walking into it. Should have a pretty good fight here, hoping he can just keep his spacing right. I believe, DRock, you mentioned that your best time so far in group stages was about a 1:30, is that right?
Yeah, correct.
So this should put you in pretty good position for great seeding walking into the elimination phase. For our viewers who haven't, taken a look at the challenge page, I don't know if that's how you're supposed to say it, challenge page. The way this tournament is formatted, we're going to have all of these groups of 4 finishing up these, group stages. We're going to cut this down to 2 from every group, the top 2 seeded, and then we're going to do a new seeding based on their best race time from the group stage. So not only is it important for our runners to, win their races, they also want to, get as fast of a possible time to guarantee that they have the easiest possible matches walking into the next phase. The seeding is going to favor you if you have a fast group stage time. So congrats on that 1:30 that you had on the previous race, and this 1:33 was, no slouch either. It's a great run.
Thank you very much. If not for the death in G Tower, I would have been pretty close to the same run, the same 1:30 pace.
I was looking at that. I think you were like 50 seconds behind walking into Gan's Tower, which is, there's plenty of time to save in Gan's Tower.
Yeah, after that sloppy mire, I was it kind of took me off PB pace, but and then I was going to just finish up strong and try to get that 1:30. But G Tower and other plans.
Looking at the leaderboard for this game, I think you had your last PB run, what was it, just like 3 or 4 months ago?
December, yeah.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of races left for you. I really think you're going to make it deep into this tournament. I mean, anybody who can run consistently in the 1:30 range is definitely a contender. As we've seen in a lot of races this tournament, not only are we seeing a lot of PBs, we're seeing a lot of deaths too, so you never know what's going to happen in a real-time attack setting.
Very true, very true. Thank you for the vote of confidence as well.
I mean, I'm not supposed to be biased, but I am rooting for you.
Thanks, man.
Jet's having a little bit of trouble here in the ice room. He is going to take a death here right before Lamolus 2. That's rough. He did have a good opportunity to use bow and arrow against that Stalfos. Stalfos will jump out of the way of any sword swipe, although they're not going to move when you are shooting your arrows at them. He may have been trying to save some of those arrows for the rest of the gauntlet, but it ended up costing him here. Chat, you know what's going on, though. We need you guys to cheer on Jet here. Send him your energy. We want to see this guy finish his race strong here.
Go, Jet, go. Go, Jet, go. Go, Jet, go.
I'd join the champ, but that'd be like too much noise.
Sure.
Oh, I do want to update, our viewers on another thing too. Our group stage here was forecasted to end by the 25th of April. We are on a very fast pace right now, though. Go figure, speedrunners would do this fast. Right now, we have over 90 matches completed. We have about 72 left to schedule, and 30 or so are on the schedule per an announcement that Scrivo made the other day. I believe yesterday, actually. So with that in mind, there's a lot of content here remaining here on Speed Gaming Family and Networks. to watch, particularly in this tournament. But the group stages may be done a little sooner than expected. Most of our runners have completed 2 or 3 races at this point. Be exciting to see how fast we can get through the tournament. I guess that's a speedrun challenge of its own. We do see Jet take these safety fairies and the magic refill on his way up to Gauntlet. That's a wise choice. All in all, he's doing pretty well to get through. He hasn't taken much damage in these ice rooms. These are by far the hardest rooms to control, so I have no criticism of him using Quake here. I actually think he may have been a little bit better off, actually, instead. I do have criticism. He probably should have used Ether instead. That being said, though, no shame in using medallions. You picked them up earlier in the run, you might as well.
There's one more thing, you know. I figured I skunked you on the fence dash. I couldn't skunk you on the bird toss, too.
It's okay. Jet missed fence dash as well, but he did please the crowd with a bird toss. We do have a love for the memes in this community.
Absolutely.
After having Walrus Prime on stream yesterday, it's hard not to. You talk to the founder, the man, the myth, the legend himself.
Big day!
Absolutely. Big day, baby. Big day. Shoutouts to Walrus and Jet getting through his Lamola's 2 fight pretty well, with plenty of magic to spare. So next we're going to see him pull out his Cane of Samaria to take care of these Wizrobes and hopefully get through the next 2 rooms very cleanly. It's a fast room if you do it right. It's slow if you get caught up and miss maybe like one of the shots. With that, we have the room that you were not a very big fan of, and it seems like he's getting very bad RNG as well. As we talked about before with guard or enemy placements, for the most part in almost every room in the game, they're going to be in the same position when they start in the room. However, how they respond to your movement and how they move RNG-wise is, pretty much up to random. So in that room, they happen to be facing in an inconvenient matter for us to dash through them. There is one thing that Jet's going to have to watch out for here. 1, the lasers, and 2, despawning the Ganon's Tower sprites. If you were to enter that staircase on the exact same frame that the previous door, or the torches that open the previous door, are closing, you would actually despawn every sprite in the rest of the tower. You would not be able to kill Aghanim 2, and you would not be able to go to Ganon. Do not pass go, do not collect $200, it's a rough time. Getting our full refills here. As we talked about before with bosses, you cannot actually access the menu while they're being destroyed or they're exploding. I think, honestly, once you've hit the... Oh, no. Jet, taking a fall on Moldworm 2. Thankfully, it's a very fast recovery from that. You just go right up the staircase and get back on the horse. Sometimes you even see the Wizrobes in that room. But during the explosion of Moldworm 2 and any other boss, you can't switch items, so we're going to pull out the hookshot even though we don't need it just yet. Some madmen in this world prefer to hover the gap, a trick that I'm not experienced enough to explain, but it is a way to cross it without even bothering to kill him. Speaking of that, DRock, do you have a good explanation for hovering?
I can take a wag at it. If I'm wrong, please correct me. You're basically looking to press the A button every 8th frame, I think. I think it's 8 frames.
It's absurdly precise, basically. But doing so allows Link to basically hover over gaps. The game only checks for whether he's on land a certain increment of frames. I believe, like you mentioned, 8. And Jet's having some really rough trouble with these mini Helmosaurs. They are a pain in the... We all know where here in this ice physics room, but he does manage to emerge unscathed. With 2.5 hearts walking into Aghanim 2, he does have a different challenge to worry about, though. It's not likely that he's going to take a whole lot of hits here. It's Ganon himself he's got to worry about. He's likely, in my opinion, he's probably going to go pick up a fairy from the tree just south of the pyramid after this fight.
Come on, Jet, you got this.
Almost getting a triple.
Oh, baby, a triple.
Well, if he gets the third double, I'll call it a double-triple.
It'd be a triple double.
I cursed him. He has half a heart left. This is close. And I believe he needs just one more hit. Wow, that blue ball. Jet has taken the worst possible death in Ganon's tower. That's rough. So with the death to Aghanim 2, he's going to have to climb the entire tower again. That's a very difficult fall to take.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate.
Hey, I got a lot of respect for him getting back up on the horse and climbing that tower again, though. I mean, this is a place where a lot of runners who, you know, were feeling bad about their run for any reason would be pretty much throwing their controller, giving up on it. So props to Jet for sticking it out and finishing this race. Got a lot of respect for that, man.
Let's go, Jet.
Yep, get those cheers on in chat. We believe in him. Gets a nice 20 drop, too. Or 10 drop. While Jet is climbing back through Ganon's tower, I do want to call a little bit of attention to other things that are going on in the speed gaming family networks at this time and going forward. We do have another Link to the Past No Major Glitches race that's going to be happening immediately following this one. We also have on the primary speed gaming channel Ori race as well. And on Speed Gaming 4, it looks like we currently have a Super Mario Sunshine race. We'll have a Super Metroid Weekly race on Speed Gaming 2 starting at 11. Turning my attention here, though, towards the rest of the NMG tournament. I'm pulling that up right now. Our next match after this one is going to be Dark Magician versus S. Diesel, who I commentated with yesterday. And we also have after midnight, basically a quarter after midnight Eastern time on Speed Gaming 3, basically the race after that one, will be Elminster RTA versus WQQQQQ WRT, who is the second place time in this category. We'll also have at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Chaucer from my group versus DBZ Kid Boo fan. He's got a longer name that I'm messing up. Apologies for that, Kid Boo. They're also in my group. They are duking it out to see where they're going to stand after Chaucer's final race. I believe that is his third one. Kid Boo this will be his first. So I'm definitely out of the tournament at this point, though. I don't think we're going to have any weird upsets there. But that'll do it for the rest of the races for today. Tomorrow we got a full slate of races. We'll have one at 1 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 7, and 10. With quite a lot of well-known racers in the community. 1 p.m. race is going to be a quad, it looks like, too.
So get hyped for some more Zelda action coming your way today, tomorrow, and the next day.
Not only that, but we got the randomizer tournament coming up, too.
Hype!
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, DRock, do you plan on doing any comms for that?
For the rando? Probably not, to be honest.
No worries. I was hoping I would get a chance to comment with you again on that one.
I don't know enough about like the strats and stuff. Like reading the seed. I can't do that.
It's really tough to keep up with all these logic changes, but yeah, I mean, no major glitches. We have a pretty straightforward run. There's not much that changes on our on our tournament. But as Magus in the chat is pointing out, there are 512 entries to that tournament. So it's going to be a much larger tournament than this. One of the advantages that we have with no major glitches in our tournament format is we're going to get through this whole thing, pretty smoothly. It's not going to take, I don't know, 3 months to do. That's what it's looking like for that tournament.
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot of hype, and there's a lot of people that are very into it. The rando stuff.
I really think it speaks to the quality of this game, though. I mean, this game has united people from across the world. I can't count how many people I've seen from France, Germany, the UK, even the Middle East. People all over the world, who love this experience, and it says to me that Nintendo did something right.
This game's an all-time classic, and it's one of those games that's really stood the test of time, and it's still fun to this day.
And to that note, for those of you who are watching due to their interest in Randomizer, we do encourage you to, take a look into this No Major Glitches speedrun. This is a really great way to improve your game there. Not only that, but let's be real here. I mean, this is easily one of the best games of all time. I'm a little biased in saying it, but I have a love for it. I'm sure most of you do too. Continue to show your love for it. Get as fast as you can at it. It's definitely worth the effort you put into it. Plus, we have a lot of good jokes. Sometimes cookies.
Gotta have cookies.
Freako in chat saying Super Metroid greater than this. I have to say to that, why not both? They're both classics. No point in not playing both. I'll tell you though, if you like ROM hacks, this community is fantastic for that. There are a lot of different ROM hacks you can play for A Link to the Past. Parallel Worlds is a really good example. If you're interested in that stuff, I mean, you could even PM me privately, but there's a lot of resources out there in the various Discords. I'd highly recommend to take a deeper look into it. Jet had a really great climb back up Gan's Tower, though. I didn't see anything that really stopped him. He's in his Aghanim 2 fight with just one more hit to go. It looks looking like a 4 cycle here.
Thanks, Mutsky. Thanks for the GG.
Alrighty, folks, get hype. We got our last Ganon fight here.
Go, Jet, go. Go, Jet, go.
Go, Jet, go. Go, Jet, go. We believe. As we talked about before, the optimal way to get through this fight is to have one cycle for each of those first 2 phases. We did manage to get through pretty cleanly. He hasn't taken really any damage from this fight so far. This does set him up to get through phase 3 without taking any hearts either. This gives him a lot of window to work with when it comes to the last phase. He can be a little more aggressive because, he can tank the extra hits. A lot of runners will take their hits from the fire bats, or like I mentioned before, the Johnny Cash Ring of Fire. Definitely things to watch out for. Jet here is going to get the torch glitch. Let's see, he doesn't manage to pull off the triple setup. I mean, he was very close to it. He had to get friendly warp for it. Key thing here is we just need to get those 12 swipes, though. We should be good if we can do that.
I'm a little late on this comment, but I just want to comment on Jet's clever use of the hook shot traveling between the 2 lanterns to avoid the fire bats as they were coming towards him. Very, very, very well done.
Absolutely. Just to kind of clarify what we're doing with that hookshot too, whenever you're in a hookshot animation, you will not take any damage. So you can use this to dodge things. And just like DRock was saying, going between those two torches is a really great way to kind of cycle back and forth and avoid the damage completely.
Freako is asking about the torch glitch. So, as you enter the final phase of Ganon, the left torch and the right torch will go out. But the left torch will go out slightly ahead of the right torch. If you relight the left torch before the right one goes out, the right one will stay lit the whole time.
Perfect explanation. And with that, Jet has finally finished off Ganon. We are good to walk through the Triforce room and finish this up. I am getting notification from Speed Gaming staff that we do have our next race that is a little behind. So we'll have to direct any questions we have for Jet to the chat. I believe I saw him earlier in it. Sorry, Jet, I can't really do an interview. We're going to have to switch over as soon as possible. In the meantime, though, we have our official speed racing time for both of these runners. DRock finished at 1:33.22, and Jet BB is finished at 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 59 seconds. Excellent race from both of you. We're going to switch over to Dark Magician and S Diesel immediately. Thanks for watching, folks. I'm Eudaimonistic, and stay tuned. We have another race coming.